The nature of the way human beings are experiencing life on planet Earth right now is different than it ever has been for a lot of reasons. As a history student, I went to UCLA, I studied history and American literature and culture, got my master's in public administration, public policy. But as a history student, I look at the great moments, the Industrial Revolution, the development of the cotton gin, the creation of the wheel, whatever. And you see those moments and you wonder, what would it be like to be alive during one of those transformative moments, and who would I be? And in my imagination, growing up, I would want to have been in a place of consequence. And so to have the opportunity to be in a role, leading a union of 160,000 people at this moment of consequence, when there's turmoil, when there's fear and uncertainty and danger and opportunity, this is exactly where I want to be. Well, the worst thing about leadership is that you can't do everything. We have a lot of people who have a lot of challenges, and my heart is big, and I want to make sure that I help to protect them and provide for them as much as humanly possible. But when someone talks to you about something and you realize it's really not in your control to fix, you can try and offer solutions, you can try and be a booster, but that's the pain point, And the other thing I've noticed is sort of a dual issue, is that every single day something happens that requires immediate attention. And so as you find a way to manage your relationship and the organization's relationship to that challenge, you can't get pulled off of your course. I have 12 distinct things that are my presidential priorities, and I can only implement them if I can do it in a way that doesn't disrupt the ongoing work of the organization. And this organization punches way above its weight with the number of people we have and the amount of contracts we negotiate. It's a truly breathtaking achievement, the way that this union works. And a lot of people don't realize that. They don't understand what goes into it. But I see it now. I spent the first few months really digging in and getting to know the operation. And now I'm pressing. To get my stuff done. And, if you can't do everything. So whatever it is that I want to get done that might not get done is heartbreaking. He's doing great. He's hanging in there. 95 is an exciting age that brings with it all kinds of challenges, but his spirit is strong, his mind is sharp, he's funny, he's still driven to be doing his work. His writing now at this point of his life is really the kind of forefront. So you never know how long you have your parents. So my brother and I and our family, my stepmom, we just sat and marinate in every day with him.
Is he on the East Coast?
He is in Baltimore. Yeah, he taught at Johns Hopkins for I think 25 years. It was his department, and they renamed the theater after him. And that was his alma mater. So for him to have a couple decades or more chapter of his life doing what he loved. He was a classically trained Shakespearean actor. He loved doing theater. He's most known for Addams Family and playing, originating Gomez.
People still know very well.
Yeah, well, if you watch those shows, I mean, it was truly, just a one-of-a-kind work of art. I mean, it just was. So, yeah. There are many people in his age bracket, well, anything older than 65, who, if they don't earn what they call session fees, new money, new acting gigs, 27,000, almost 28,000 in a given year, they don't qualify. And the outrageous problem that we have is that the residual money that comes in doesn't count towards your qualifying. So that's a big problem. It was one of the things I ran on, was trying to help fix that. So you'll have people who worked for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years in the industry who who qualified for health care every year, and all of a sudden they're summarily dropped off of it because, even though that residual money is taxed as new income, even though it's used to calculate their dues, the plans have just, made survival decisions. But I'm dead set, on fixing that problem. Well, not a lot of people understand how the SAG pension and AFTRA pension fund and the health plans work. They're trustees producer trustees, performer trustees, and there is a legal ERISA firewall between the main union and those plans and the way they're run. So we're not allowed to direct them to do stuff. But we do negotiate with the companies for the money that goes into those plans, and how much of our bargaining capital we invest on improving the plans is, and we also, the president recommends to the board, and the board approves who the trustees are. So to me, the most impactful thing I can do, because you're right, the presidency has certain real contours that can be used to fix, but in a lot of ways it requires consensus building and relationships and that kind of stuff. So, but the one thing that I can do without question is prepare the board with a deeply thorough analysis of what's going on with the plan, who the trustees are, maybe offer them recommendations for other trustees in case they feel they want to make adjustments here or there, and then advocate for them from my perch in the boardroom, what I think should be done. But we have a merged union. We still have two distinct pension plans, which is really problematic. But we have a constituency, or many constituencies within the union that must be accommodated and protected, and so it's a very complicated process. But I things in this world get accomplished by people who don't know that it can't be done. So I am a very ambitious and determined advocate for our people. He's very much on my mind. He and the group of actors who work in his pocket, so to speak, they are people who, their wages could really be improved. Their back-end participation should be improved massively. There's this amazing rationale that says, linear television is going away and residuals will never be like that again. And I say, okay, but every time one streamer sends a title to another streamer, that's a new transaction. The way it's worked before is they'll sort of make you say, we're just going to move that over. That phrase, move over, is hilarious and has no business in the contract anymore. If they're going to make a new contract where the first streamer has 9 lawyers and the second streamer has 9 lawyers and the agreement is a 100-page agreement for that transaction, that's new money. That's new transaction. The idea that now advertising is coming back, even is coming in the streamers in a hurry, and all the consumers are feeling it and with sort of shock and wonder. But you have, in the case of one streamer, 370 million subscribers who every month are paying their subscriber fee. Every month that subscriber fee money comes into their account, that's new money. So that's a new deal with us. And if we're, and I'm clear-eyed about that. So that's, when I think of my little brother and I think about his, his life and his, the way he makes money, I can't wait. I can't wait to be at a Thanksgiving or a Christmas with him and nudge him and say, hey, how's your residuals doing? And have him look at me like, man, it's good to have a brother as a White House. And yeah. George Clooney rode my little brother's coattails on the facts of life. Absolutely. Yeah, I was a kid when my mom was president of this union.
You remember already? I'm sorry.
81. I've been members of then it was, we call it Legacy SAGs. It was Screen Actors Guild before the merger. So, since 1981. It's almost 45 years now at this point. But you look so young. My mom's contribution, I think, to the union was very, very significant because, but maybe not in the way that would capture the eyes of a journalist. Because her predecessor, who was, a mentor of hers, and Ed Asner, a titan in the labor movement, really, he had gotten very political with regard to Central America and stuff like that. And it really was, it caused, internal struggle with people feeling, what's the what's the union's responsibility? Should we put our recognizability, our fame behind a political cause, or should we focus on it? And I think my mom, when she came in, it was her, mandate to try and let things get calm and try and focus back up on the core mission, core functions of the union. So, she was hilarious when she would come home from a board meeting, just so, annoyed, because she would say, all these actors are in the boardroom wanting to play the part of a board member, instead of actually getting something done. Well, it's been 40 years and now, or 45 years, and now, our board is 80 people, and they're really smart and they're really focused. And as long as they have a disciplined leadership in terms of how we structure the meetings and how we build the conversation, it is I'm proud of the board of this union. But it does take thoughtfulness and sensitivity to people's various concerns. We're a national organization. That was something that was really important to my mother. She talked a lot about this is a national organization. And I've spent, my career trying to understand what that means. We have 25 locals all over the country, and we represent broadcasters as well as stunt people and background artists and performers and pilots and puppeteers, and we have a lot, and voiceover artists and content creators and whatever. So, but trying to appreciate what it must be like in Minnesota or Seattle or in Texas or wherever when stuff is coming in their realm to shoot, and not as much as they'd like, and most of them are working hard with their state governments to try and get tax incentives, and so what I really worked hard to communicate to all of them was I want to be your champion, every single one of you. I want whoever's close. If you're ready to, and you just need the governor of your state, or you just need the legislature, maybe they saw Rudy and they liked Rudy, they're a fan of Lord of the Rings, I'll drop in out of there and walk with you up to your state capitol and shake their hands and try and tell them what I think the benefit of their of this incentive is for their community and their constituents. And so that's, I think the fact that the board sees me genuinely interested in and defensive of their identity, their needs, I think helps create a stability in the boardroom that is, that is what we need in order to function properly. So, and we don't really have a choice. This union went through 20-something years of real internal conflict, where, fighting over jurisdiction, the merger, things that go on with the health plan, lots and lots of different things, and strong-willed people of intensity fought. And when Fran came in, it was clear that we can't have that anymore. You can disagree vehemently, and we do, but ultimately, if we don't have a respect for the need for cohesion in our ultimate cohesion, if something wins out, we've had situations happen like with the verticals agreement, where internally I wasn't exactly as strong on what the size and scope of that verticals agreement should be, but everyone else was. And so when that went through, I decided, hey, my job as the constitutionally prescribed chief spokesperson is to go out there and let people know how amazing this verticals agreement is. And it is. And in a weird way, the power of the collective, the power of the democracy that we try to ascribe to really worked on me, because I started to understand the value of it more and more. So if that's the intention that people have and the willingness they have to kind of lose a point and keep going, we needed that. And if we didn't have that, I don't think the strike would have created the level of solidarity and impact that it did across the country, because Fran did a great job of letting all of the different people from the different sort of philosophical or political groups and schisms in our organization be heard. And she kept saying, that's the secret sauce. And she's absolutely right. If you know anything about conflict resolution, it starts with listening to all the parties in a way where they feel safe and they're willing to operate in good faith. And Fran put that intention on the room. It worked, and the results were very clear to all the members. It's a little bit tricky because we have 160,000 members across the country. Los Angeles and New York are the largest of the locals. Los Angeles is the largest. It's very hard for the 80,000 members of Los Angeles to know who anybody is. They know what they recognize, or they know who's endorsing or something like that. So the leadership of the union favors the more famous people. And in a way that is fantastic, because it's a competitive advantage when we're negotiating, when we're in the marketplace of ideas and trying to get attention. But there can be a disconnect between, a person who is very recognizable, who maybe has a lot more money, maybe, even though you never know who has what and who doesn't. But, whether or not they can be in touch with the interests of all of the members of the union. I spent 6 years, 4 as an elected member of the board of both the LA local and the national board, and 2 before that just operating as an activist within the union, really, really caring about everyone. So when I go into these meetings, these W&W meetings, which are our pre-negotiation meetings, I will say to everybody, I'm going to fight as hard for you as anybody has ever fought for you, for your issue. Even if you're a background artist and you just need a little extra stipend because of what it takes for you to get to set. Like, everyone's interest. And people say, you can't fight for everybody equally. I say, yes, I can. Because what you do is, at the moment, the way it works is every proposal comes into the room, and there's hundreds of them usually, and then people have to prioritize them and everything. And at every moment where any issue is the subject of the moment, I want to make sure that it's being argued for as effectively as it can be, as far as I can tell. And if there's a moment where I think the argument hasn't been fully made, there was one time when we were talking in one of the negotiations about stunt drivers, precision drivers, people who have certain skill and training. And a lot of times on movies or commercials or something, they'll just throw someone in the car, grab a background performer or a crew member or somebody off the street and say, hey, can you drive this car? If you have a hood-mounted camera or some other lights or something, and you're coming up to an intersection where there are background artists or just not, civilians walking across, that can be really dangerous. And I remember the stunt people in the room making the argument like, hey, this is why we think we should be in a position to do that. And the discussion in the room had to do with how much they were being paid. And when it was just about over, just before we were going to vote, I went to the microphone and I said, hey, this is in the interest of the companies. This is a liability that they are not acknowledging. If a driver who's not qualified accidentally injures or kills somebody when it could have been prevented, that negotiation is where they cannot escape. Once this is brought to their attention and it's a part of the record, if something bad happens, God forbid, they can't say they didn't know about it. So, I felt like I was the one in that particular moment to make that case, and I will do that for every single constituency we have. No, I'm not neutral. I'm absolutely convinced that Los Angeles and New York and San Diego and San Francisco and New Mexico and Las Vegas and Chicago and St. Paul and Mid-Atlantic and New England and all of them can advance and improve the amount of work that comes to the total picture. The problem is that people think that they're competing against each other. Is New Mexico competing against this new big deal they have in New Jersey? No. In New Jersey, the film business is competing against the whatever other businesses are in that area. And if the political leaders in that area can see fit to incentivize entertainment dollars to work there, they've done a great thing for the whole industry. And you said it. There's more stuff getting made. And in this current moment when all of this stuff is going on, there are a lot of leaders telling a lot of shareholders that they're going to be making more product. So I'm bullish for anybody in our union who can participate in securing those kinds of tax incentives. So we're working very hard. The entire industry is working hard to get a federal tax credit, and it cuts across all political lines. We know that would help bring, jobs back, movies and television shows back into the country. I'm bullish on that. I'm bullish on American jobs. I love, Lord of the Rings was in New Zealand, and I've worked in Canada 1,000 times, and I love working in Budapest, and I love working in Bulgaria, and I love it. As an actor, I love it. But as the president of the union, I know that my responsibility is to help advantage our members, and our members need, work is provided in the United States. So I will work and do everything in my power to try and help bring business back to the United States. Well, we're about to go back into bargaining. We've got the contract term, if you can imagine, is already up again. And we've been, the last couple of months, preparing for the negotiation. Every moment of the negotiation, every moment of the preparation is informed by the sacrifice that was made by everyone to have that level of job action that shuts down an industry of this size is arresting. So you don't do it lightly, but you're very aware of it. And, a lot of people will decide that they know what your character is or what you're capable of based on really their feelings. So in the labor movement, I'm a student of the labor movement in this country for the last several hundred years, there's only one real tool available to a labor union in a negotiation, and that's saying no. So our organization is massive. We're different than the other unions. We're very careful. We're very responsible, and we are determined to have as healthy and positive and constructive an exchange as possible. But we reserve the right to say no again if we need to. I think if people know that you are responsible and you're not going to ask them to do something that isn't truly in their interests, I think their ability to feel good about being asked to approach a strike authorization vote favorably is there. I mean, the strike happened. There was a little downturn afterwards, and then, in my opinion, and no fault of the strike, the real slowdown in the industry kicked in, which I think was based on forces that were much larger than a 3-month strike. And that has put people in a perilous situation where they've not worked in a long time, they're not qualifying for their health care because of that, but they're also pretty smart. And they look at what's happening with artificial intelligence, they look at what's happening with the wages, and they look at their health care, and they realize that even if they are working at the rates they're working right now, they can't qualify for health care. Only a few tiny percent can. So I think when you say, hey, if you don't stand up and fight for yourself right now, all of us together, the next thing you know, we're going to be in worse than the Wild West. We're going to be in a hellscape, the likes of which this industry has never seen. So, people will be there if they need to be, and there should be no mistake about that. But I also tell people that bargaining is not, it's the orderly process by which the companies and the union work through their relationship together. And it shouldn't be traumatic. It should be a natural process of give and take. That was not their operating mode the last time. They came in last time provoking the fight. They wanted the strike. No question in my mind. I was in those rooms every single day. They're sending much different signals now. They're sending signals of wanting stability, of wanting to work, as partners again. So good. If they come to the table responsibly and, really look at the quality of life of our members and, be good stewards, good bosses, then great. But if they don't, then, we'll have something to say about it. From my point of view, there is no going back. We will slip in no way. That our responsibility is to protect the gains that we've made in the past. Our obligation and our opportunity is try and press for advantage, which we intend to do. Well, I mean, there's more people vying for more jobs, so that dynamic has always been there, where people are hungry to work, they're auditioning like crazy, they've prepared themselves and they're in the fight, and it just won't come. It doesn't seem to happen. So, for that group of people, that's just so frustrating. I try and encourage them that, like, just keep at it and your moment will come. So what you're saying speaks to the fact that the poverty that the companies cry falls on deaf ears with me. I think the members knew years before, at least like 2 years before the 2023 negotiation, that artificial intelligence was coming. And it was coming in a very comprehensive way, and it could cost jobs. And I think that in our room, before it was visible to most of the members and the media and the companies and everything else, there was great urgency about it. So that was one of the premier strike issues. And it's only gotten, from a labor perspective, graver. So I would expect your editors to be, to have ample opportunity to talk to people who are now really well informed about this. That's one of the things that I find refreshing is such a complicated issue where, a lot of people who aren't really great with technology, there's now members who come in and they're speaking into this conversation with deep research, a lot of personal experience, a lot of work experience, and they're making it so the proposals that we'll bring across are going to be pretty sharp. There's been a lot of discussion about licensing and members availing themselves of the technology that exists where they can have their name, image, and likeness, their digital replica. I'm not sure synthetically what sort of ownership they're talking about, or if they own the data that goes into the model. But basically, that's their privilege. That's their right. It may or may not be it's their natural right, and soon it will be their legal right. We're working very hard to get certain laws passed and protected. But, we in our contracts, we negotiate to have our name, image, and likeness and the characters we play, controlled by the companies. And the issue becomes like, what happens when they don't police their own IP? Their failure to go after Google for so long, when Google was just blatantly using all kinds of copyrighted material. I have performers coming up to me saying, "Hey, let's sue them. What's happening? Why aren't the companies doing it?" Well, we were very gratified to see that Disney the other day decided to go after Google. So we support that decision wholeheartedly and hope all of the companies will get into the business of defending their copyrights, which they want to and they are doing. But my members are like, "Let's go, people." California was done a real service by the legislature and Governor Newsom signing a $750 million tax incentive. And there were some really interesting features to that piece of legislation that made a lot of the lawmakers, the policymakers, more comfortable about endorsing films, so they didn't feel like they were paying for ridiculous paydays for superstars and stuff like that. It has to be aimed at advantaging labor workers. I'm seeing people running for governor now that realize that $750 million may not be enough by a long shot. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the competition for achieving $1 billion or $1.5 billion in those tax incentives in the state of California. New York has done a great job. Federally, there is all sorts of talk. I speak directly with John Voight regularly. John is one of the envoy members that President Trump has assigned to work with the entertainment industry. Republicans and Democrats, every union, all of the studios, all the streamers, everyone wants this tax incentive. So the vicissitudes of the congressional calendar are enough to make one mad. But, I really, really believe now, with everything that I've been exposed to, I've read the legislation, I've talked to the policymakers directly. There's a shot, and it would bring tens of thousands of dollars tens of thousands of jobs back to this country in the blink of an eye. It would rescue the business. So I really hope that President Trump continues to lean into the idea, and that lawmakers on both sides of the aisle realize that they have the opportunity and really the obligation from an American history, cultural history perspective. This is our art form, and we're losing it big time. And if we want to protect it, then we need the government to do what it does with so many other industries, recognize its value and help protect it. I was invited to speak in Sacramento. There were 3 different committees. It was a labor committee, it was a privacy committee, and one other one. And the premise of the day was what AI's impact is on the workforce. And I was up there to essentially represent the entertainment industry at that particular hearing. But there was also drivers and teachers and nurses and people from all different professional lives talking about the ways in which artificial intelligence was changing the way their work life goes, and the entertainment industry has a really nuanced and complex set of challenges in that area, and it's working. Policy advocacy is working. Governor Newsom came to our headquarters, SAG-AFTRA headquarters in Los Angeles, to sign 2 pieces of AI protection legislation into law. That was, to me, a demonstration of how hard our lawyers work to draft that legislation and how hard our policy people work to help push it in Sacramento. We are, without question, in the vanguard of protecting workers from the dangers of AI. You can think about the Warner Brothers sale from a lot of different perspectives. I filmed Goonies on the Warner Brothers lot. That water tower and that hill in Burbank is something that I've seen my whole life. The idea that it would be sold is like selling the house you grew up in. But you can also think of it in terms of world culture. The economics of it create a lot of serious questions. The regulatory process, I think we can all see that the regulatory process with these kinds of transactions isn't necessarily, is sort of not a priority. So philosophically so. There are people who really just think, let big business do big business and let the marketplace decide. There's a lot of people in my membership and in the entertainment community who see it as a monopolistic practice that will, help degrade, the ability for people to make a living. And historically, looking through the labor movement or the industrial age or jobs, when wealth consolidates, it generally is not that great for job creation. So at the same time, I don't want to be Pollyannish about it. I don't want to be somebody who reacts from a position of from a philosophical position that doesn't accept the reality of the situation. And I feel like we want to do business with whoever ends up in the owner's chair. And the people who are competing for that, in that, I don't know what you want to call it, in that transaction, for people who are engaged in that transaction, they are trying to send signals to everyone that under their regime, there would be more jobs, that they believe that there would be a greater opportunity to protect the theatrical exhibition experience. And for SAG-AFTRA, our attitude is like, well, let's see, the proof will be in the pudding. Show me. Show me in your deal making exactly what you're going to do with the broadcast business. What are you going to do with, I want to know, Disney just put $1 billion into OpenAI. Amazon put $10 billion into OpenAI. I want to know what are the other companies' capital interests in this technology. To me, that's one of the many little canaries in the coal mine, or one of the little dynamics that you have to try and read the tea leaves or something like that. But in a real way, it's actually kind of easy to be the head of a labor union with that sort of a thing going on, because it gets very clear. My members have existed in an industry that's been led by people who are not protecting the workforce. They're just not. If you talk to people in Hollywood right now, and not just Hollywood, but the entertainment business writ large, and you say, like, are you happy? How you doing? How's your life? Healthcare's in jeopardy, pensions in jeopardy, their safety's in jeopardy, the ability for their, And so I look to these bosses and I go, hey, what kind of environment, what kind of employment environment do you want to lead? I'm looking for the boss that wants to come in and say, hey, I recognize the value of our people, and we're gonna compensate you, and we're gonna treat you the way you're supposed to. So my job is sit back, pray for the best, and make sure that in the moments that are in my control, when I'm sitting in a negotiating chair opposite the companies, that I represent my people as best I can. And I don't think the business is going to die. I just don't. There's too many people who love what they do. So you can have AI take over a certain piece of the market share if they're going to do that, and we're going to protect to the best of our ability against that. You still got people who want to direct movies, and you still got actors who want to act in them. And when people are passionate about what they do, other people get interested in it. So this industry deserves to survive. We've earned the right over the last 100 years. Our relationship to the American consumer, to the public, to the viewing public, has been to deliver, on balance, a product that enriches their lives, that makes them happy, that makes them think, that makes them feel. And when you've done that for people, I believe that people don't just want to discard that. I think that people can be loyal to you if you're loyal to them. That loyalty, that affinity is, it's part of what makes human beings special, and it's part of what makes this country great. So I am absolutely optimistic and feeling very protective. And I'm excited that the companies look like they're a little defensive. I'm excited about that, because I think that means they're going to be in a position to parlay appropriately. Yeah, I mean, I think the environment I find myself in right now is akin to The Lord of the Rings, where there's a massive journey where the fate of civilization hinges on it. I don't think that's overstatement. And, even the smallest person can change, the fate of the world. And to me, the smallest person in this scenario is labor. Labor has the ability to carry the, So, but for me personally, I think the logos of me personally, the movie of mine that's the closest to me, is Rudy. I feel like the reason I was right to play Rudy is because I am Rudy. And I feel like, to whatever extent, the qualities that make Rudy special, determination, grit, inspiration, aspiration, whatever is a part of that thing that makes his story touch the lives of so many people, is the part of myself that I want to pour into this job on behalf of my members. I'm a flawed human being. I make mistakes and I stumble, but I also I know those emotions. For Samwise Gamgee, goodness, fairness, friendship, loyalty. Mikey from the Goonies, about adventure. If you think of the Goonies is about saving their home. It's fun. There's a pirate ship, but it's about a group of friends who don't want to, be overtaken by industrialists. Maybe that's the most important one. So, I don't know. People can decide for themselves, but...
Is there a place for Bob from Stranger Things? I'm wondering, is the guy who knows the computer language or the...
Absolutely. Bob. Oh, Bob. He got to date Winona Ryder, so that's not nothing.
Traditionally,
Bob, the thing that made Bob so popular, what's come back to me, is that he was likable, and he just was caring. He cared about Joyce. He cared about her kids. He wanted to help. Let me bring over some puzzles. Are you bored? Let's play some puzzles. There's something about the simplicity of that is so elegant. And I hope that I'm able for my members to, that's how I feel about the members. That's how I honestly feel. I feel, affection. I think that affection is what was so appealing, and so I definitely have that. I think understanding the rebrand actually makes it more tolerable for people who are like, what? 30 years it's been the SAG Awards. Well, everybody knows it. It's like, well, the metrics that Netflix, who pays for the show at this point, had showed that the foreign numbers, the international numbers, and they didn't know in their polling, the international folks didn't know what it was. You call it the ACTRA Awards, people are going to know what it is. It's a very interesting relationship to have Netflix, who is going to be across the bargaining table from us, providing a forum for us to be able to celebrate the work of our people. It's unique, particularly the speech that the president gets to give. And at this point, that speech will be given right towards the end of the first bargaining window. So my native respect, for a host will meet with my absolute determination to advocate for my people. And it should be good. It'll be nice. But, the actor, I was awarded the ensemble of Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, was awarded the actor. And I have it at home. It's called The Actor. And the actor goes to 30 years, every single one that was been handed out, the actor goes to. And so to call it the ACTRA Awards, we're really happy to have a long-term relationship with our show with that platform. So I don't know what else to say other than, in the life of all things named, there was a time when it wasn't named that, so I think people will end up growing to appreciate it. Our process inside the boardroom and inside our member meetings and inside the deliberations for these kinds of things, it's pretty robust. And my responsibility is to help facilitate the conversation. And so I've seen the gender conversation, all the diversity, equity, inclusion issues that are implicated in the question you're saying now, really wrestled with. And I think it's an ongoing process. And hopefully the show that happens this year will reflect the best wisdom and interests of the people who exist now. And if it doesn't, then I hope it adjusts going forward to find a way to make as many people as possible feel recognized, heard, respected, appreciated. The whole debate about it, the whole broad debate about it, I always just find so frustrating because to me the solution is simple. Just like, how do people feel? How do you feel? How would you like your kids treated in a school setting? And I know we can have a coarsening, and I know people think, oh, rub a little dirt in it, or oh, that's how you get tough, or whatever. We have to evolve as a species, and one of the ways we're going to do that is by learning to be respectful of each other, and that goes in all directions. You go where you can make a great deal. A deal that's in your interest and a deal that's in the interest of the party you're working with. In this particular environment where viewing habits have been changing radically, there are a lot of people watching these streaming channels. So it's nice to go where the people are watching. The Oscars, the Academy Awards, the ACTRA Awards are brands. And I really don't like the idea of certain branding of certain ideas because you're talking about performance, you're talking about artistic integrity and excellence and, emotional communications, and to kind of reduce it to a, coarse marketing word, Madison Avenue word, feels it. But we have a personality as an organization, we have an identity as an organization, we have values as an organization, and we want to share those values, and we want people to appreciate it, and that it does. And so the fact that the Academy found a way to make a great deal to have their show paid for, it makes me so happy for them. You know, I was nominated for an Academy Award back in 1995. My dad was. My mom won an Academy Award. You know, I would love for performers and creative people, filmmakers, writers, set designers, costumers, you know, composers, everybody that's, I would love for them to be recognized in, and by recognized, I don't just mean chosen by the group who's recognizing them. I mean, let the world have a moment where they go, oh, right, what we're enjoying doesn't just happen automatically. There are people who are working really hard to try and tell these stories. So we're still unique, though, because the Motion Picture Academy is an academy. And their museum and their whole rubric is a standard-setting, you know, enterprise. But we're a labor union. So for a labor union to be on a streaming platform is unique, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud of Netflix for that. I think it shows real confidence on the part of Netflix to be in this partnership with us. And so I want to honor and respect that. So the contract expires June 30th. We are going to begin bargaining on February 9th, which is much, much sooner than bargaining normally begins. But this was our strategic preference. We really appreciate that the companies acceded to it, and we think strategically for us, it kind of narrows a window for the companies to stockpile, which is something that happens sometimes. We have 7 massive constituencies that I think we do the companies a favor by taking care of all of them and letting them. So, but we want to make sure that each and every proposal has its full and complete ability to be negotiated. And then for our part and the company's part, there is a nascent growing of domestic production, and nobody wants to interrupt that. So, and if for whatever reason we get to the end of the segment of time, the month or 6 weeks or whatever it is, if we don't have a deal, then we'll make sure everybody knows and knows why. But we will also have an opportunity to do a second pass before the expiration date. So I hope we can strike a great deal soon, quickly. Let them go about doing the other ones, and let the sense of anxiety that people have dissipate. You know, I don't want to be in a world where everybody's like on Tinder hooks. I think journalists sometimes, present company excluded, love to play that urgency music that you get on morning drive time. Are they going to strike? Are they going to strike? And it's like, you know what? These are real people's lives and real sacrifice that comes into play if things go into strike mode. So I just keep saying, this is the normal course of doing business. This is the responsible, predictable, sensible way of addressing issues with each other. And so we're going to do that. And, you know, I want to believe that it'll be smooth sailing. I hope. It looked like an absolute certainty. At the moment, I don't know. You know, is the writer of it at the Venice Film Festival or something like that said that the first pass had been written, a lot of good notes. The second pass was finished and about to go back into the process. So, you know, Steven is Spielberg is the decider. So if it captures the whimsy and the magic, then I can see him and Chris Columbus, who's really driving the effort, going forward with it. I don't think the current machinations will have any impact on it. I think it's its own thing, and it'll either happen or it won't.
Is everyone still with us from that? John Tuzak, I guess not.
John is gone. Ann Ramsey, who played Mama, is gone. But we still have Joy Pants and Robert Davi, and all the Goonies are still here. And, you know, they sort of were communicating with us that they kind of understood what we've been saying to them for 40 years, which is the audience really wants to see what happens to the people they know. Because, you know, a lot of times in sequels or reboots or whatever, it's a new cast, it's a new story, it's a new whatever, which I think, you know, Goonies could do. But I think that I think most of the Goonies, or maybe almost all of the Goonies, would be willing to go back and play around And some people say, oh, you know, that's sacrilege. You're like, you know what? If it sucks, don't watch it. Yeah. You know? Yeah, Rob, I mean, Meathead. This was Meathead. I don't know if that's where he got his SAG card. He probably was working for, you know, years before that. But his life, and certainly his kind of public profile for the next 50 years, sort of felt like an evolution of Meathead. You know, someone who is socially conscious, a little awkward, but, you know, emotionally available. You know, he had the ability to be really intellectually rigorous while slightly buffoonish at the same time. And this is a magical quality. So when I learned of his, you know, his murder, we try to use words carefully. You know, you try to use his passing or whatever. As someone who's done a lot of work in the mental health field, like all of the country, giving speeches on mental health. My mom was, you know, sort of known mental health advocate. I was in shock. I was in legitimate, and I remember having the sensation, looking at my wife, and like, I think I'm in shock. She goes, what do you mean? And I just started unspooling dialogue, both his dialogue and his movies, you know, quotes from his movies, and realizing that I had been deeply affected by his talent, by his craft. So I auditioned for him once for Stand By Me, and it was one of the most spectacular flame out auditions, because River Phoenix had gone in just before me, and it was about, you know, River was sobbing, and when I came in, Rob was sobbing, and he was like, okay, go ahead. And I was like, I don't know what to do, but it just, you know, certain things in life, certain people, certain ideas, they deserve to mature. And the fact that he won't be able to mature the way his father did, who lived to 100 almost, is just so unfair. It just feels so sad, and so I, you know, for he and his wife, I just feel so terrible, and you know, our entire community. Certain things happen, you know, 9/11, the Space Shuttle Challenger, the death of Kennedy, the assassination. Certain things all of a sudden make the world feel tighter together. And I think Rob Reiner's passing did that in this community. It woke people up. It reminded them of our fragility and reminded them of our relationship to something that is unique. You know, his movies, genre-defining movies, lots of genres, lots of defining. You know, he brought us together. I don't think that's overstatement. You know, I think so. You know, we mourn as a community. I think sometimes we make statements, you know, institutionally, you know, representing statements, that kind of thing, you know, in this sort of ceremonial way. But, you know, our community has the ability at times to remember the connectedness we feel to each other, and his passing woke that up. Oh yeah, even he was in New Girl. He was in a relatively modern series, you know, sitcom or comedy, whatever it was.
Wolf of Wall Street for a minute,
yeah,
I remember this week.
He was in Wolf of Wall Street. I mean, he did this thing where he was describing how to make a sandwich. And he was like, salad, you know, bread, you know, lettuce, meat. And he just does this thing. And you're like, he's so beautiful and so funny. And, you know, his activism is something that really I admired a lot. I know that created, you know, some new moment of controversy in the body politic and in the zeitgeist. And it's like, come on, man. He just really led with his heart, led with his beliefs, and I think he was a good American, the American president. You know, I mean, yeah, just from Spinal Tap to A Few Good Men. You just can't say enough about that guy.